Hello everyone and welcome back to another Star Wars figure review. Today we're going to take a look at another figure from the Black Series 6-inch line, once again another exclusive, and in today's review we are going to take a look at none other than this guy. This is of course Luke Skywalker, Death Star Escape, and this particular figure depicts Luke as he's seen during the trash compactor sequence in Episode 4 A New Hope. Now, while this particular figure didn't necessarily prove as popular as previous exclusives in the Black Series 6-inch line, it's still a very nice figure to have. It's a vast improvement over the 2015 release of Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise from the 6-inch line, and in my opinion a very underrated figure. It's one of those that you can't really get an appreciation of just how good he is until you get him in hand. So hopefully this review persuades you guys to pick him up. If you don't already own Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise in the Black Series, this figure is an absolute must, and if you do already own that figure, this one is a nice upgrade, so it's a win-win all round. So before we jump into the review of this figure, as always, let's take a look at the packaging that he comes in. Now once again, we do get the standard Black Series packaging with this particular figure, nothing too spectacular going on. You've got the Black Series logo featured at the top of the box, you've got an image of Luke down in the bottom corner. On the side of the box, obviously no number in the series as this one is an exclusive. Over in the US he's exclusive to Target. The rest of the world I'm not too sure, and in the UK he is available via several online retailers such as of course staractionfigures.co.uk, and as always you can find a link in the video description where you can purchase this guy for yourself. On the back of the box you've got a brief description of the character, that image of Luke once again, and not much else. So nothing to write home about with the packaging. It's nothing spectacular, nothing fancy, and nothing we haven't already seen before. So with packaging aside, let's jump into the review of the figure. And as I said, this is a really nice one. Now this particular figure was first unofficially teased at San Diego Comic-Con back in 2017. You may remember on the show floor at that convention, Hasbro had a 40th anniversary of Star Wars Celebration diorama going on, and that featured various scenes from Episode 4 A New Hope. One of them of course was the trash compactor, and the Luke Skywalker figure that was displayed in that diorama did have at the time a brand new head sculpt, very similar but not exactly the same as this one. And a lot of collectors obviously saw that and thought we were getting a new figure, but it wasn't until May of 2019 that this particular figure was released. For many people I think a lot of collectors saw this as a wasted slot in the Black Series 6-inch line. Obviously it's a scene-specific variant of a figure that we already have. A lot of other figures probably should have come before this one, but it was a cheap figure for Hasbro to make, you know, just a simple head swap, a little bit of a deco change and not much else, and it's a decent figure. As I said, vast improvement in my opinion over the 2015 release, and a must-have if you never got around to picking up that figure. Now there are some really cool details going on with this guy that I want to touch base on in the review, but we'll run through the accessories first, then we'll touch base on articulation, and then we'll go into that really nice head sculpt that this figure has. So in terms of accessories, obviously Luke does come with a removable Stormtrooper helmet. I'll place that on his head in just a moment. It is a tight fit, and I am a little bit scared of wearing some of the paint off of Luke's nose when I add and constantly remove that helmet, so just be aware of that. But it is a snug fit, it doesn't look out of proportion, and again you'll get a look at that later on in the video. He does of course come with a trademark Blastech E11 Stormtrooper rifle, very nicely sculpted. You've got a nice silver highlight at the top of the barrel there, and the blaster rifle itself can be stored in the holster on the back of the figure, which is a really nice addition. So if you want to have this figure holding his helmet or position him in any other way, there is storage there on the back of the figure for the blaster. Also included with this figure is a very small and easily lost accessory, and you'll see there on the side of the belt you do have a comm link. It can be removed from the belt and placed into Luke's hand. Unfortunately on my figure the grasp on Luke's hand is slightly too wide, and unfortunately he can't hold that comm link, but that's nothing a little bit of boiling hot water and a little squeeze won't solve. But just for the purposes of not losing that in this review, I'm going to keep it attached to his belt so you can get a good look at it. Now another accessory that this figure comes with, similar to the Clone Commander Obi-Wan that I gave you a look at in my previous review, is a display stand. Again, it's one of those triangular, clear display stands with the foot slot at the front of the stand. With this particular figure, it doesn't work too well. I've tried to display this figure on my shelf using this display stand, and he tends to just lean forward and eventually fall off. So again, as I mentioned in my last review, I would have preferred pegs on these display stands, but it's still a nice addition nonetheless. It's you know, nice of Hasbro to finally include display stands with these 6-inch figures. God only knows we've been asking for long enough. But I think I'm going to go the way of a third party in terms of stands for my 6-inch figures, because these just don't really do the job for me. But again, nice of them to include that. Another unofficial accessory, I guess you could say, with this figure is located again on the belt, and it is a grappling hook. Now, as opposed to an accessory, this is more of a sculpt modification, as obviously this wasn't included with the standard Stormtrooper. But again, it is non-removable. It's just a nice little detail that Hasbro have sculpted onto this figure in order to make him a little bit more accurate to Luke's costume in the film. Now, with regards to other sculpt modifications on this figure, you will notice that the torso of Luke Skywalker is slightly shrunken down a little bit, and that is because Luke is obviously a little short for a Stormtrooper. Now, instead of just reissuing a standard Stormtrooper body with this figure, they have of course modified the torso to make it so that he is a little bit shorter than the other 6-inch troopers, which is really nice. And again, like with the helmet, doesn't you know, hinder the proportions of the figure too much. He does look a little bit chunky in the midsection, but it's nothing too major. It does look very, very nice. Now obviously you'll notice as well, in terms of an overall deco change, the 2015 release of Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise featured clean armour. This one, of course, since he's been in the trash compactor, features a bit of dirt and weathering, which is very nicely printed on the figure. It's not painted, so you do have this sort of printed look once you get close up to some of those weathering details, but it does look really nice. It's not too overpowering, it's nice and subtle. You know, we're not talking Mimban Stormtrooper or Mud Trooper levels of dirt on this figure, but there's enough Dianoga doo-doo all over this figure to make him look like he's been down there in the trash compactor, which is really, really nice. And the weathering does continue onto the helmet as well, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure Luke never takes his helmet down into the trash compactor, but it's a nice bit of deco continuity nonetheless. Now, as you can see, he does feature a brand new head sculpt since Luke has been in the trash compactor and he's been dragged under the water by that Dianoga monster. He does of course feature a wet look and a slicked back look to his hair, which is really, really nice. There's some really nice paint and detail in that hair. Very nice colour indeed, nice and accurate to the film. And the head sculpt itself, I've got to say, is probably one of the best Mark Hamill or Luke Skywalker likenesses that Hasbro have put out in quite some time. Not taking into consideration the recent Jedi Destiny 3-pack from San Diego Comic-Con, but this is a fantastic head sculpt. Really on the money, really on point. And Hasbro have just done a fantastic job with this one, and that photoreal face tech goes a very, very long way. This is definitely one of the best figures to utilise that new technology. So really, really nice head sculpt on this one. Once again, that removable helmet can be added to the figure, and again, it is a slightly tight fit. The original release was a lot looser, but this one you've really got to push on there. And I'm really scared of either, again, wearing off the paint on the face or flattening Luke's nose when I do that, because it is a really tight fit. But I'm not going to be displaying this helmet on the figure too often. This will likely be the last time for a while that I place the helmet on this figure, so hopefully it won't do too much damage. But as I said, it does look nice, and again, looks nice and in proportion. So in terms of articulation, this figure is packed to the brim, as once again he is part of the 6-inch line. We do get a hinge at the neck, so you can look up, down, all around. Obviously you get a better sense of movement when the helmet is removed. He features hinges at the shoulders, however the shoulder armour does hinder a little bit of that articulation. The shoulder pad isn't soft like the Death Trooper from Rogue One, it isn't hinged, and it just kind of stops there. So that's about as much movement as you can get out of the arm, which is a little bit of a hindrance when you're trying to display the helmet under Luke's arm, but it is what it is. You know, it would have been nice if that could have been modified for this figure, but the hinge is still there nonetheless. And the joints on this figure are very tight on my sample. You can hear them clicking. I don't know whether that's just mine or whether that's everybody's figure, but not a fan of that. We also have swivels at the upper bicep. We have hinges in the arms or in the elbows, hinges at the wrist, a ball joint at the torso, once again very tight, you can almost hear that clicking. We also have hinges at the hips, swivels at the upper thigh, double joints in the knees, and a hinge and a rocker at the ankle, although again very, very tight joints on this figure. So I'm going to try my best not to move this one around too much, just because I don't want to weaken those joints. But all in all, this is a really, really nice figure. Once again, as I said at the beginning of the review, vast improvement over the previous release. You will notice that the head sculpts, for example, I've got the original release here just to give you a brief comparison. You'll notice the head sculpts are leaps and bounds in terms of difference. You know, the original release is just, there's no comparison at all to this new one. It is a nice head sculpt in its own right, you know, considering that this is pre-photoreal face printing. It's still a nice head sculpt, and I'd love to see this one updated, because I think prior to the photoreal being applied, this was one of my favourite Luke Skywalker head sculpts, in addition to the X-Wing pilot from the 6-inch line. So an update on this one would be very nice, but again, there's just no comparison between these two figures. And again, you'll notice that this guy is clean. One other thing to point out about the differences between the two figures as well is that with this new release from the Trash Compactor, the armour is a lot more glossy and it's a lot shinier, a lot smoother and much more defined in my opinion, and it just looks much, much better. So I'm a huge fan of the finish on the armour. If you've got the Imperial Stormtrooper from Star Wars Rebels, think about the finish on that, or maybe even the First Order Stormtroopers from the sequel trilogy. The finish on the armour is very similar to those figures, nice and clean, which I really, really like, despite all these poo stains. But yeah, very, very nice figure. Definitely one that I would recommend. Again, I don't think a lot of people really asked for, needed or wanted this figure. But again, it's one of those figures that you really can't get a good appreciation of it until you have it in hand. So I hope that this review has persuaded you to at least check it out. If you're, you know, if you're in store and you see this one hanging on shelves, take a look at it, see what you think. Don't just dismiss it, as it is, as I said, a very underrated figure. So I hope you've enjoyed this review on Luke Skywalker based on the Death Star escape scene. Once again, very cool figure, and I'll be back with some more reviews for you very, very soon. Got a ton more Black Series 6-inch exclusives to give you a look at. The Mud Trooper or Mimban Stormtrooper from Solo, General Grievous, some really cool figures coming up, plus lots of vintage collection stuff on the way as well, so make sure you stay tuned for all of those. And until my next review, as always guys, thank you for tuning in, keep collecting, and until next time, may the Force be with you.